3 years ago, I started my first job as a software engineer, and while there were a lot of things that I did expect coming from college, I also had a lot of misconceptions. So in honor of this being almost exactly my 3-year work anniversary, here are 3 of the biggest misconceptions that I had about being a software engineer. There's a strong bias towards the importance of coding proficiency as a software engineer, which makes sense because it's a core part of the job. But to be good at it, there's a number of other things that you need to do well. The first part of this mostly just has to do with where you're spending your time. You'll have meetings around planning, design, stand-up, doing code reviews. From company to company, this will vary quite a bit. You have some companies that are very into process and you'll have a ton of meetings, and other places that want to give as much time back to developers as possible and try to keep meetings to a minimum. The second part of this, which I think is the more interesting bit, is how much of the job and doing it well is dependent on things outside of coding ability that you don't hear about as often. This is stuff like creativity, customer awareness, being able to collaborate effectively as a team. Basically, these are all the things that help you work effectively with your coworkers to create the right solutions and to ship a great product. Done well, the job is not mechanical. You aren't given an exact spec and basically told convert this into code and then you're done. That's the way that a lot of college assignments were structured, and that's been very different from my experiences so far as a software engineer. I spend a lot of time trying to understand how users are going to interact with our tool, the problems that they're facing, and trying to create the new kinds of experiences or build the right features that are going to light up those scenarios. And in a lot of cases, users don't even know what they want yet. You have to invent that future for them. So coding is still an important part of the job. I don't think you can be a great software engineer without also being a strong coder, but that in itself is not sufficient to really thrive in the role. For me, the concepts of maintenance and testing were virtually non-existent back in college. Most of the projects only had a lifespan of a couple of weeks tops, and everything was either assessed by auto graders or you just did your own manual validation. Out of everything in this video, this one was probably the biggest wake-up call. I've now been working on the same project for 3 years, and while there is a lot of effort around adding new functionality, there's also so much around adding automated testing, improving build processes, and going back in and making changes to accommodate new scenarios or to fix bugs. This goes to emphasize the importance of writing code, call it the right way. Adding tests makes it a lot easier to go in after the fact and make adjustments without worrying about breaking everything. Writing your code in a clean way, documenting it well, making sure everything makes sense in the code makes your life a heck of a lot easier when you have to go in and edit a piece of code that hasn't been touched in years and maybe you weren't the last one to work on it. And in the grand scheme of software development, I am working on a relatively young project. It's not uncommon to see people working on legacy code that's over 10 years old, where multiple generations of developers have come and gone from the project and a lot of people have touched the code. So in summary, maintenance and testing, much more important than I ever thought they were in college when everything was kind of a throwaway assignment and nothing ever really stuck around for more than a couple of weeks. So this is definitely a great area to start learning more about. Something that I did hear a lot back when I was in college is how much learning on the job you do as part of your career, and this is true to an extent. I have learned a huge amount over the past 3 years just over the course of doing my job, especially in the first 6 months where there was a really big transition from the kind of coding I was doing in college to the type of work I was doing now as a professional software developer. The only issue is that what you're learning is narrowly limited to what you're doing, which means I've grown a lot in certain areas that are really relevant to what I'm doing in my particular role. But there are other aspects of the field that I used to invest in a lot more heavily back when I was in college as part of my curriculum that I haven't touched once as part of my day job. What this means is it's up to you to do a lot of learning outside of work to keep up with what else is going on in the industry, or if you ever want to pivot, to get the experiences that you need to be able to do that. I dedicate a lot of time outside of work to learning about things that don't directly have anything to do with my day job, like building iOS apps using Swift, or just experimenting with various languages over the years. Building good habits around learning has probably been one of the most valuable changes that I've made since I graduated from college, and at this point I can't ever really see myself stopping doing it. I enjoy it too much, and I think it's also an essential part of being a good software engineer and having the career that I want to have. Anyways, that's 3 of the biggest misconceptions that I had coming out of college. There's a bunch of other misconceptions that I could talk about, but I wanted to keep this as a shorter video. Anyways, that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.